Welcome to Heart Riffing, a podcast by way of the heart. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your essence and live from a place of personal freedom. If you're interested in learning more about our courses, mentoring and workshops, feel free to visit wayoftheheart.com.au. We're so glad you're here and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey folks, how you doing? Welcome to Way of the Heart, Heart Riffing here on the couch with Jess again. And this time we're going to talk about something which almost always comes up every time we are working with someone in and around Way of the Heart. The thing that comes up is stories. And the stories we tell about ourselves, the stories we tell about our history, the narrative constructs that we use to house our truth and to define what our reality is. And we're going to talk about the idea that humans are kind of sense-making creatures that use narrative, that use story. We've been doing it ever since we were little kids, and that we use these stories to try and make sense of our world, and that over time those stories can atrophy and become like, this is the way that it is. And that creates a bit of a drama for us and a bit of a challenge for us. So let's jump in and talk about stories. Are you good to rock and roll?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So I think maybe a good question, and you've already touched on this, but what are stories in this particular context?
Yeah. So there wouldn't be a single time that I would not sit down with someone when I'm starting Way of the Heart process with them, and I would say, so tell me what's going on. Tell me what's happening for you. Tell me your story. I might even say that, And then what would happen is, depending on where they are, what would happen is somewhere between 45 minutes later or an hour and 15 or even an hour and a half later, they would go, so that's what's going on.
Right.
And during that whole period of time, they will give me the way that they have constructed or sequenced together the events that have led them to the need to call me or the need to, and then I found Way of the Heart, and then I watched your Instagram or I listened to the potty, and so that's why. And it's like, it's this whole narrative that says, okay, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
And for some people, the narrative might be, this is how my marriage fell apart and I lived by myself. Here I am. Another person was like, this is how I got into this job, but I'm not happy and I'm scrambling and I'm over. This is why, my blended family, or whatever the story is, there's always a sequence of events. Mm-hmm. There's always this process of picking out elements that now create this kind of framing narrative. Mm. And the narrative is always, the narrative is interpretive. It kind of is designed to give me a window into what is. This is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. Of my situation. Mm. And so that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about narrative or story or someone's, someone's story.
Yeah. And then I guess because we're not always creating these stories intentionally, right? Like, this is something that, I don't know, builds up over time, or you, I don't know, fall into a pattern of building your story and then.
Well, yeah. So we've been doing it since we were little kids, right? The first thing that happens when you're young is, mum and dad start to tell you stories, or they put you in front of the TV, at least my parents did, and you watch stories about, Foghorn and Leghorn back in the day. Oh, Little Bear for me. Little Bear for you. Yeah. It's like, oh, Little Bear's amazing. Not so much. He's boring. And then it's The Littlest Mermaid, and then it's,
Dora the Explorer.
And on and on.
Bluey.
Bluey, yeah. And so we love stories because there's so much gets communicated through them. Mm-hmm. We can stick so much into them. And so not only do we love watching stories and hearing stories, but we also we create our own, right? Because we're always trying to make sense. I think it was, I don't know who it was back in my past, but I think it was an old professor at college who said to me, humans are sense-making creatures. And I went, we are. we're always trying to make sense of our world, you know. St. Augustine had the famous saying of faith seeking understanding. We're always trying to, even if we have faith in some galactic transcendent part, that faith will still be going like, well, how does this work? What's the story behind this? You know? And so we're sense-making, understanding, seeking creatures. And the way that we do that is that we're not computers that chug through a bazillion bits of data and come up with a thesis. We don't do that. Like we're not. We do have a big prefrontal cortex that's very, very capable. It's not a supercomputer in the sense of chug through the data. What we do is we scan the data for something that looks familiar or something that fits. And then we selectively grab that bit of data and we stick it into, that'll fit my story. Oh, that'll go. And it's a bit like constructing a painting. Oh, that color works. Oh, that little anecdote fits there. Or that word goes there. Or then when that happens, this person will say this. And so we get really, really selective about the way that we construct our stories. There's famous founders of neuro-linguistic programming. I can't even remember. I think I've got their book somewhere. It's very, very boring read. It's extraordinarily boring read somewhere back there. But the founders of kind of neuro-linguistic programming used to say that humans do three things. We delete, we distort, and we generalize. So you have all this massive amount of data. Because there's too much information, because there's too many data points, because there's too much stuff, what we do is we delete a bunch of stuff. We go, that won't fit, that won't fit, that won't fit. Not intentionally. We do this almost subconsciously. That won't fit. So we delete a bunch of stuff. We distort stuff. We go, well, there's a little bit of that. Well, that could fit into the story if we change a couple of things. So we distort. And then there's other stuff. We go, well, let's just generalize about that. So we delete, distort, generalize in the construction of a narrative. So when someone tells you their story, it's not that they're some kind of malevolent liar, bullshitting you. But what they've essentially done is they've deleted, distorted, and generalized just to synthesize
all the data,
all the stuff. Because it's too much; it won't fit. And some of the data is completely incongruent. So you'll find that when someone tells you their story, anything that was really incongruent, they've just ignored it.
Omitted.
They've completely omitted it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you can sit there and listen to someone's story and it completely makes sense as a kind of a singular, standalone narrative.
If you're doing all of this without realizing it, though, that's kind of a pressure point, really, because you're also putting all of your identity into that. Like, that's your truth, right?
Well, that's such an interesting transition because humans don't hold their stories as loosely provisional, wishy-washy. They just don't.
No.
It's like, this is the way it is. This is the truth.
Yeah.
This is how it happened.
Yeah. And this is the core behind every argument, conflict, miscommunication.
Yeah, because this happened.
Yeah.
And then someone says, no, it didn't. Someone with a different story, different narrative frame goes, no, it didn't. Yes, it did. No, it didn't happen like that at all. Well, I was there. Like you can see it's just a back and forth, because we don't just go, oh, that didn't happen? No, it didn't happen. Oh, cool, okay, I'll forget about it then. No, we don't do that. We hold on to it like it definitely freaking happened. And and I'm telling you the truth. And what are you calling me a liar?
Yeah.
You want to throw down on this one?
Yeah, but that's...
We're ready to go?
Yeah, that's it. And then it escalates because...
Of course it does.
And then the two stories are...
Yeah, contrary.
Yeah.
They conflict with one another.
Contrary, absolute truths.
Conflict, yeah, conflicting absolute truths. So someone has to be wrong and someone has to. Now we're really in a binary place.
Yeah.
Someone's wrong, someone's right, someone's in, someone's out, someone's true, someone's a liar, someone's got an agenda, someone's just trying to be honest about what really happened. So it can massively deteriorate really quickly.
Yeah.
You know, you find this when you do singular marriage, say relationship counseling, maybe not marriage counseling, even when you do relationship counseling, or even when you go into often when we go into a corporate situation, we talk to the manager and we go, what went down? And the manager goes, blah, 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 blah. And then you go and talk to the frontline worker and you say, so what happened for you? Like, that didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
It was like this. Da, 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 da. And if you go from the executive suite down to the front line, so you go from the practitioner doing stuff to the manager running process to the executive suite managing the strategy of the business, they tell completely different stories across the spectrum. And you find that the problem with the business is not the product, is not what they're doing. The problem is that these three people all have completely different narratives about what's reality and what's not.
And ironically, if you were to have filmed the whole event, the person watching the film would then impress upon that another story as well of how all of that went down and how that's framed and everything.
Exactly. So it's just this kind of natural way that we tell stories to house our truth, and our truth then doesn't just sit there as truth. It becomes ultimate truth. It becomes inviolable truth. And if you hang out with religious people, they have their truth about the universe and God and people and all this sort of stuff. And people who essentially are vested in their truth will not negotiate it. Like, I won't negotiate my truth. And so that becomes really challenging when we're trying to do way of the heart with people, because someone sits down for that 45 minutes or that hour and 15 or an hour and a half telling me their story. And if they've downloaded that as truth, that's a really hard point. It's a really critical moment. Because if I accept that as the truth, then as someone who's trying to mentor them, I've then stepped into, I've now become a player in that narrative. And I've got to play my role according to that narrative script. So I almost always refuse to do that. I do it nicely. I try to do it nicely. I normally say to them after they've told me the story, and I try not to be condescending, I go, that's an incredible story. Are you okay if I don't believe it? And inevitably they go, what
do you mean?
What are you going on about?
Yeah.
And I go, well, if I believe that, then you've just set up the curriculum. You've just set up what we're going to be talking about. And you've just locked me into what I'm allowed to address and what is truth and what is not truth and what I can challenge you with and what I can't challenge you with. You've just given me the colors that I'm allowed to paint a picture with, and way of the heart is going to have to fit into that.
Yeah.
And that's really, and I don't play that. I won't do that.
All right. But then where do you go from there, right? Like, we create these stories, we cling on to them, and then suddenly where you're sort of asking the person to give you permission to not buy into that, and then kind of by proxy that makes them aware that, oh, this is just a narrative. Do I have to buy into that? But then if you're not buying into that, where do you go?
So then the world opens up again.
Right.
That's the value of doing that for someone. Because when you just go, it's a great story, it's like, you okay if I don't buy into that? Then their question is, well, why not? Like, what are you saying? And then what you say is, it's a construct. It's just the way you've organized the events that have happened to your life. It's a construct that is deeply impacted by where you felt wounded, where you felt righteous, where you felt clear, where you felt confused. It's a narrative which is radically impacted by mood, by temperament, by the things that you perceive as being cruel, the things that you perceive as being wonderful. Like this thing has been impacted by so many variants that there's no way that it's just a stable body of reality. Like there's no way we can deal with it as like the infallible dynamic of what's going on. And in fact, there is an infallible dynamic of what's going on. But and this is kind of like a macro big thinking point, right? The big thing that is going on never uses words. The natural flow of life always keeps happening wordlessly. It doesn't. So tide in, tide out, sun up, sun down, summer, autumn, winter, spring, ants climbing the wall because it's raining, birds coming home to sleep at night at the exact same time every night, the natural rhythms of my life, the natural rhythms of my own physicality. None of that uses any words whatsoever. And so in a way, what I'm trying to do is get people to pause on this world of words where words create reality, which is a very, very Western thing. Our Western wisdom traditions almost always begin with, in the beginning, God said, our theistic worldviews, like the Bible, for example, says, in the beginning, God said. And so, Alan Watts is at pains to, in one of his books, to say, Western philosophy is based on the logos, the word. We have this, the Greek word is logos. And it's like, it's in the beginning was the word. And the New Testament, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God. And it's this idea that everything is created through the spoken word. That's Western philosophy in a nutshell.
Because then we can form arguments and logic and
it's just the
observation.
It's just the observation that words have creative power, and words have the power to create realities.
Right.
That people, create environments, create contexts that people can respond out of, right, and live out of, and that they do live out of that. So it is that observation. Eastern religion and Eastern wisdom traditions are much like many of them have embodied processes where the whole, almost again, renunciate processes, renouncing the busyness of the mind. So meditation is the process of take the seat, take the posture, sit, observe. And the first thing that you observe is the busyness of the mind, the monkey mind that constantly wants to interpret, wants to label, wants to speak, wants to create narrative. And in say Zen Buddhism or Chan Buddhism or many Buddhist traditions, you just sit and you watch the mind. And as you do, you breathe in and you breathe out. Because the most elemental thing is breath. And so you return your attention to, you're returning your attention to the native thing, the most natural thing that we do. The very first thing that we do when we were born,
breathe.
We breathed in.
Yeah.
We breathed out. If you didn't do that, you're not here. You didn't get that one right?
Yeah.
It was a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The first thing we didn't do was make a story. The first thing we did was breathe in and breathe out. Our first experience in life was wordless. Until we cried, I suppose, until someone hit us on the bum, and then we went, ow, that hurt.
Yeah. Ironically, probably to make us breathe.
Simultaneously, we breathed and declared, I'm not happy.
Cry.
I'm not happy.
That's the first thing that we did. We're like,
that bastard just hit me. Yes, welcome to life.
It's a painful place.
So there's this, so when we're encouraging people to go, great story, there's another thing going on.
Yeah.
By taking their story as provisional, by taking their story as a construct, then what we're effectively trying to do is to go, hey, there's another rhythm over here.
Yeah, right.
Everything doesn't have to fit into that rhythm.
Yeah.
That's a big movement in someone's life.
It is a big movement, and I think it's I think it's easier said than done, right?
Really, yeah,
Like,
for sure.
it's easy to say, it's easy to tap someone on the shoulder and be like, hey, you know that you don't have to buy into all of this stuff, or hey, you know that this isn't the ultimate truth, or, you know, there's something deeper that exists as an undercurrent to all of this. You know, just tap into that, or just, you know, sit with that. But when you're in the midst of the story, whatever, and we're telling multiple stories at the same time, right? Like, there's the story of what's happening in your workplace, there's a story of what's happening, you know, in your family, in your relationship, even in the small stories, right? Like, if the cat comes and scratches up the couch, there's a story about, you know,
all of it.
God, this cat's being an asshole. So, you know, because we are sense-making creatures, and we are wordy language creatures, and this happens subconsciously. I guess, how do you actually lean into the wordlessness or the formlessness of that and hold that intention with all of the other language that happens?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, that process is a process of practice. This is where inner practices are designed to just calm down the dominance of a mind, that, because we're talking about the part of us that creates story, the energy aspect of humans that creates story is the mind, as it scrambles to synthesize events right through that process of delusion, distortion, generalization. So for me, the embodied practices, or the practices of stillness, or the practices of reflection, practices of slowing down and being present, and the practices of, you know, waking up and going, don't buy in straight away. You know, don't pick up the phone and read the news. You know, not falling into the reflexive elements of our culture that just immediately get you trucking down the road uncritically, but just sitting there and observing.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the value of those embodied practices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've touched on a really important other point too, is that we have a society that traffics in stories.
Completely.
Right? We are almost in competition to see who can, you know, win people over to this version of truth or this particular story, right? This happens.
Well, and it's soundbited.
Yeah.
Everything in the media is soundbited.
Yeah.
Instagram is a soundbite.
Yeah.
Facebook is a soundbite.
Yes.
You know, Substack is maybe a slightly longer soundbite.
Yeah.
All our news reels are soundbites. You know, even our television shows, if you watch free to air, it's like 5 minutes ad, 5 minutes ad. The 30-minute show's got 4 lots of ads in it. Soundbite, 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 soundbite. Our advertising is soundbite. Get your message across. What's your value proposition? Get it across quickly. You know, it's soundbited. So those soundbites are narrative tags. You know, so we're getting constantly invited into, you know, narrative building processes. You know,
and then I guess, do those practices help with that as well? Like, if those practices that you mentioned before, if they help you kind of, or give you permission to step out of your own narrative, can you do the same thing to step out of what we're being bombarded with?
Yeah, 100%. I think once you challenge, you know, once you say all of this is a construct, right? Then once you stop believing that is the bed of reality. I mean, I've got a friend who was, you know, through his career, highly, you know, right up there in the advertising world, like at a global marketing level. He kind of sat in the big seats, decided on strategy for a lot of things. And he would just say, you know, that the advertising world back in the day, and it probably still does today, I don't know, but he would say, we looked at social, predominant social kind of presuppositions, things that were embedded into the way that people understood themselves. And he goes, we would leverage those things. So what he's effectively saying is our media worked to find out what was the unconscious things that people were just downloading as truth.
Yeah, wow.
How can we leverage those things which people just assume is truth?
Yeah.
And how can we leverage our product into that? And he gave us a bunch of examples about how they went into different countries and just kind of went, oh, these people believe this, great. We can twist that, and on the back of that, we can sell this.
Yeah.
And he had an epiphany in that where he said, oh, I'm kind of doing the devil's work here because I'm playing with the collective consciousness of people and manipulating it completely for my, for very nefarious kind of market-driven ends, And he said, oh, well, I just realized how corrupt that was. I realized how broken that was, and I had to get out. What the spiritual practices do is this, what the inner practices do is the inner practices are designed to allow you just to take the seat aside and just to go, I don't believe that presupposition.
Yeah.
Like one of the presuppositions, for example, just to give you an example, one of the presuppositions in Western culture is that growth is good. Growth is good.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to grow. Spiritual growth, personal growth, grow healthy and strong market economy, strong company. You want your business to grow. Growth is good. So growth is like growth equals good. Well, not if you're a rainforest. Not if you're a rainforest and like someone says, we can get more timber out of you.
Okay.
Not if you're a natural ecosystem that needs to be left alone, not consumed.
Yeah.
Not if you're a fishery.
Yeah.
Consumption of growth in the fishing industry equals a decrease in the number of fish.
Yeah, got it. Yes.
Right. So some of those presuppositions which we download, if you just download them and you engage them uncritically, then you're playing with that narrative. Growth's a good thing. Oh, it's a strong fishing industry. It's a strong forestry industry.
Yeah.
It's a strong coal mining industry. It's a strong power sector.
Yeah.
It's a strong economy, And then, I always love the idea that, the planet is slowly shriveling up and burning, but, America and a couple of free world countries are going to go, well, we've got a really strong economy.
Yeah.
And I know. But
awesome.
if you're off in the stratosphere looking at the big blue pearl that's turning grey and shrinking, who gives a shit whether you've got a strong economy?
Yeah.
So it's like you've got a social construct here that's driven by a bunch of narratives, which is actually not a good thing.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that because you're so wedded to the narrative, then the only gift that we can give you is anything that gets you out of the prevailing narrative, anything that gives you some objectivity and says, oh, wow, look at the effect of that narrative.
Yeah.
Look at the impact of that narrative. But if you're in the narrative and you're ensconced in it and you're encapsulated in it, you don't have that objectivity. So you're a free market economist and you think strong economies are great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but it means that this country won't have any food, that we're going to rip minerals off that. We're going to take, rare minerals out of that country. We're going to exploit this. We're going to do that. We're going to, dude, calm the fun.
Yeah.
Like, what bullshit story are you telling yourself?
Yeah. This is funny. This is almost like, I think another example could be in a family where like there's the assumption that the parents should stay together even if the relationship is faulty for the kids. And that's the story. The story is that they need to have, the parents there. But realistically, if you look at the potential effect of that, or if you challenge the presupposition that that's the best thing it should be.
Yeah, completely.
Then you go, oh, maybe the relationship's actually faulty and what you're modeling to your children is a dysfunctional, loveless relationship.
Completely. There's heaps of them. European kids, European young people largely don't think about buying a place. Australian young people do. The Australian dream is to have your own home. European dream is like, I'm never going to be able to afford a place in Paris. What are you going on about?
Yeah.
Why would I want to buy a place in Paris? I can rent one.
Yeah.
It's completely different narrative frameworks.
Yeah.
One says ownership is good. The other one goes, ownership is ridiculous. I wouldn't want to own it.
Mm-hmm.
It costs me too much. Spend my life paying it off.
Yeah.
What a burden.
Yeah.
I can just rent it, and when I don't want to be there, I can leave.
Be there, yeah.
So, it's like, it's the observation that our narrative frames lock us into situations, right? And they're just constructs.
Yeah.
They're just constructs, and some of the constructs aren't even helpful.
Yes. This is funny too, because this kind of goes into, you can be adhering to that construct and that have actually nothing to do with your heart.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Hard energy might be looking at the narrative construct and going, don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, I got a narrative construct about my education and how I was brought up and the private school I went to and how I felt about that as a guy that always had, semi-hippie leanings and an alternate perspective. And, the conflict I had is like, in my heart, I think sometimes just looks at that and goes, boring. It's just a boring story.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it for 60 years. It's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other people have stories about the impact that their parent had on them and blah, 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 blah. And you go, okay, and what do you want to do with that? Your parents been, like, I know one person, they're old, right? They're very old.
Yeah.
Like they're in their 80s.
Yeah.
Right? And they tell a story about how impacted they were by their mother who died 65 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just go, dude, you've you've been reinforcing this story for 65 years, like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? It had that bigger an impact?
Why do we cling to it that tightly? You're holding on to it for 60 years, or I can just imagine,
Yeah, it's a great question. It is the big question of this event.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great question because you get something from it, right?
Yeah.
It serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Our stories give us
something. Yeah.
that we go, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want the right to be the aggrieved person.
Yes.
I want the right to be. There's something about our stories that allow us, that give us the rationality to be who we are presently.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of justifies why I'm wounded, why I'm offended, why I'm broken. Right? That's vaguely your attachment piece, right?
Yeah.
That's the interesting part.
Yeah. That makes total sense. So it's like the story is the thing that allows whichever dominant energy you're leaning into to keep doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
And when I say dominant energy, it could be that, the ego part of you that has the need to be bigger, better, best goes, well, I have to push harder and I have to stay longer hours at work and I have to tap out of, family obligations or social interactions because then I can
X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the emotional energy that goes, well, I'm I have to keep pushing through and I have to keep enduring this suffering and da 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 da. So that,
and I think the tragedy in all of that, right? And we could go down the, and I will do this. The coaching and some psychology domains go down the, well, tell yourself a better story. Let go of that attachment to that woundedness or that being the victim or being the reason why you're driven is because, you came from scarcity. So therefore, the classic story of a man had two sons who were twins and he was an alcoholic. One son goes off and becomes a multimillionaire and drives corporations and becomes an industry leader. The other son replicates his father and becomes a drunk in the street. And someone comes up to the drunk in the street and says, dude, why are you here? And he goes, if you had a father like I had, you'd struggle and you'd be on struggle street as too. And then they go to the son that's become the industry leader and go, why are you here? And he says, if you had a father like I had, that's the classic old life coaching parody of like,
Yes.
Your stories can take you in divergent directions depending on the resourcefulness of your story, right? Okay, well said, lock that one in. A lot of therapies are dealing with trying to play with your story. Way of the Heart, we're not doing that. Way of the Heart, we're not saying your story is resourceful or unresourceful. Your story can be tweaked to give you a different outcome. Way of the Heart is just saying, look at how your story serves this particular agenda in your life and realize it's completely provisional, and that there could be another substrata of reality down here that has nothing to do with that and operates completely independently of that and doesn't even use words. There's a part of you that it can exist at a much more fundamental level in a natural rhythm of your life, where all stories, not just resourceful or unresourceful stories, where all stories are completely provisional. We don't need words. There's a part of you that exists without words. Like that's what we're trying to do, rather than just therapize the crap out of it so that we can get an outcome. What if we just gently go, they're just story. They might mean something in a moment and be completely irrelevant at the same time.
Yeah. And that's, I think, framing it that way, like, what if they're just stories? I mean, I find that really permission giving or really freeing to just go, cool. I can take a second and actually just unsubscribe from that.
Yeah, you get to unsubscribe from the role. And the gift that gives you is, so the only thing that really matters is not the history, which I have a story about, or the future, which I have a projection about. Anything that really matters is just being present now.
Yeah.
What am I feeling now? So bring the other energies in, but what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I, physically, what am I sensing? What do I need in this moment? Maybe I don't need to walk in and play the role of the wounded warrior, Maybe I don't need to, talk about existential needs. Sometimes, the stories we tell ourselves lock us into a role that we keep playing, and existentially there's a part of it that just goes, I'm sick of being that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to pick up that role, especially if you've conditioned your environment to respond to that. You walk into that situation and everyone treats you like that. I'm the fiery one that's going to say something inappropriate. Okay, well, would you like to go to a family event where you don't say something inappropriate?
Yeah.
Would you just like to sit quietly at a family event and just enjoy the family?
Yeah. But what happens if it wouldn't be the same if I didn't
play devil's advocate? Yeah.
What happens though if you're so identified with your story that you go, well, that's my essence?
So it's never your essence.
But I think that some people would go, well, I am the fiery one. Or you would go, you're the fish that's at the very bottom of the ocean, and that is part of your essence, like you're deep and you have that rich thought life. And so what happens then? How do you differentiate between what's essence, what's story? Where's the gap between the two?
Because I think essence doesn't require the story. That would be my observation.
Yeah.
Me being me doesn't actually require a story about me being me. Me trying to explain me to you requires a story, because now we're playing with words again, right? So it's a bit of a like, I feel like you're sort of asking the question, so, what is peanut butter toast like without peanut butter? You know, it's like it's like peanut butter toast. I don't know. It's like
Sans peanut butter.
like, if you want me to describe my essence, I need to use words, which will create a narrative, right?
Yes.
But you know, my essence doesn't actually. There's nothing in my essence that's dependent on words. When I try and describe it, I'm going to be playing in a narrative space.
Got it,
you know?
got it.
So I've got the toast.
Yeah.
And then if you want me to describe the toast, I'm going to have to put peanut butter on it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going to get it a little bit trapped there, but
Got it.
it is a super interesting and super freeing concept. Where do you go? And we play with this idea by talking about the micro and the macro. Our stories are the micro dramas of our life, you know, the daily soap opera of our life, where there's plot twists and there's evil characters and good characters and there's wins and losses and there's tragedies and there's joys. You know, that's the narrative space so often about the way we're describing our world. The macro is the big thing. We're on this planet. It's spinning at whatever speed it's spinning. You know, we're an organism in a vast sea of other organisms. We're an energetic bunch of cells reflecting on ourselves. You know, like it's kind of cosmic. You know, like think of the trees. If the trees told stories, how loud would it be? You know, you look out at all the trees here where we live. If every tree was going, "This is my story. Let me tell you." You're like,
I mean, all the cicadas are doing that right now. But
but we are this little organism that's just going, let me tell you about my truth.
Yeah.
You know, my nationality, my religion, my beliefs, my conviction, you know, my goals, my aims, my aspirations. It's like, oh, okay, you're a very noisy organism.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Our stories make us noisy.
Yeah.
And they're provisional. They're constructs.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a whole layer of reality that exists beneath them. And if we can drop into that. So when I say to my client, is it okay when I say to the way of the heart person, is it okay if I don't believe that? I'm not saying you're full of shit and I don't care. I'm just saying I'm going to drag you out of that down here.
Yeah.
You know, where you just leave that. And then you can be really generous to it too. Because then you can go, isn't that a fascinating story? You can have a bit of it. When you have that objective groundedness, you can then look at the story and go, that is a crafty story. You know, like you can actually see, sometimes you can see the mischief or you can see the agenda or you can see the attachment flowing through it. You know, well, wow, that really worked for me. When I say it like that, that really works for me, right? I get a lot of attention, don't I?
And then you're the awareness piece, right? Like you're the observer.
Yeah, and then you're getting what you get aware of. Then is you get aware of a dominant worldview, like the presupposition that you bought into, and how you're leveraging. How you become the evil marketing man, leveraging shit to get what you need. Yeah. I mean, that's what you see when you start to get behind the story, when you're sitting in the ground of your being in something very natural and grounded that is wordless. You can look at the world of words and go, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
There's a game being played. You know, that's very much what Laozi and Duangzi did when they observed Confucius. And they go, oh, look at what he's trying to do now. You know, so the Confucius says was a little bit cynical.
Right.
Because he said a lot.
Right.
You know, and they didn't say much.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, oh, okay, 5 precepts for this, 10 precepts for that. Oh, have you got another 7 for something else? You know, it was quite mischievous.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's the world of stories. They're constructs. They're fun. They're mischievous. They're dangerous. They're all sorts of different things. Have a think about that one, and happy to take any questions or pushback or whatever you've got for us.
Yeah, always reach out. Always leave a comment or send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear what you want us to talk about next.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Heart Riffing. If today's conversation resonated, you can find more of our work, including courses, mentoring, and workshops, at www.wayoftheheart.com.au or on our Instagram, Way of the Heart Official. We'd love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or questions, so please always feel free to message or comment. We look forward to seeing you next time.